But all right, why don't we dive into probably the last story of the night? And it's one that I'm very kind of like interested to talk about predominantly because look, Hawkeye dropped the other day and it came out, again, it had good reviews. People seem to like it. But then this weird narrative popped up, right? Where it says here that Hawkeye viewership is 40% behind a Loki premiere in the Samba measured Disney Plus homes. Now, Samba has been getting a lot of love this year, especially following the release of the Snyder Cut, where they were saying that it was about, I think it was like, I forget how many people they said watched, like what, 1.8 million people watched it the opening weekend. And it wasn't as much as Wonder Woman 84, which had 2.2 million, I think 1.8 million for Snyder Cut. And then they've kind of been talking about it over the course of the year. And people have been, really kind of buying into it. And I get it. Samba, though, again, like the Nielsen rating, it's an average, I think. And I don't put a lot of faith into these things myself. But this is what the article says here. It says that according to the latest streaming viewership stats from Samba TV, which measures 3 million US households, and what they are streaming over a 5-minute increment, that the first episode number of Hawkeye trails the 5-day US household viewership figure for Disney Plus, and Marvel's Loki, which was watched by 2.5 million homes over the June 9th through 13th by negative 40%. Or 40%, I don't know. Hawkeye's first episode premiere also ranks behind Loki's finale, which pulled in 1.9 million homes over the 5-day per Samba. Hawkeye's 5-day is also behind the 3-day premieres of Disney Plus, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and WandaVision. The number of Disney Plus subscribers currently stands at 118.1 million worldwide, with roughly more than a third of that coming from North America. Now, the thing to remember with Samba TV is it's very specific, like Samsung television that they use. So it's only an average, and Disney's not going to put out that kind of information. They haven't put out that kind of information, but I guarantee you it's probably doing pretty well. Now, there's another metric that I think we should go by here, and one that I think is actually probably more interesting and a better indicator of the popularity of a show like Hawkeye. And here's why. So comicbook.com ran an article tonight, said Venom Let There Be Carnage, Hawkeye, top current list of pirated shows and films. Now, I know what you're thinking, Matt, what are you doing talking about piracy? Do you want Kevin Feige and that sniper rifle meme to come aiming at your head from across the way because you're talking about pirating Hawkeye? I'm not talking about pirating Hawkeye. I'm talking about how piracy is a great way to indicate the trend of how something is doing. I know that sounds weird, but believe it or not, Game of Thrones was bragging about how often they were pirated during the whole thing with the first couple of seasons of that show. And to give you guys just a random example of this, at the beginning of Game of Thrones, I think at the end of Game of Thrones season 1, 4 million people pirated the season finale. And 4 million people watched the season finale on HBO Max. By the end of the series finale, you had 19 million watching it live, 19 million pirated it. That is how big that show got over the span of those 8 years in regards to not only viewership, which would be money for HBO Max, as well as the piracy amount that people had watched it. And they knew, and this is something that all film studios and these guys, they know, but they don't ever want to talk about, is that piracy is a good indicator for how well something is, because it has been, if I remember correctly, they have done studies that show that people who pirate are actually some of the more higher spenders for the content, either down the road or something along those lines. Again, it's an older study. I'm trying to remember the very specifics of it, but piracy does not hurt them as often as they like to argue. But let's find out more. So Musso, an anti-piracy and analytics company, revealed that Marvel's live-action heroes are among the most pirated shows and films. According to Deadline, Musso's findings show that Hawkeye attracted 26.7% of all illegal TV show downloads, torrents, and streams during the observed period of November 22nd through 28th. This makes Hawkeye the most pirated show of the week, ahead of The Wheel of Time, Dexter: New Blood, Star Trek Discovery, and Arcane. Similarly, Venom Let There Be Carnage was the most pirated movie of the week, claiming 38.3% of all pirated film activity. The other movies in that list include No Time to Die, Shang-Chi, Red Notice, and Dune. And so that's something there to consider, where the number one pirated show of the week, right? The number one pirated show of the week was absolutely freaking Hawkeye. And I mean, like, doesn't that kind of seem like interesting? You know, doesn't that kind of seem a little bit on the interesting side, where you're like, all right. Let's see. Let me if I can find this. I'm trying to see if I can find the article on torrentfreak.com that talks about the television side of things. I know they talked about the movie side, but you know, you can find you can generally find through these websites how much things are pirated, and that gives you a good idea for how well they're doing, how popular they are. And I know that sounds like a weird way of looking at it, but it is very much just kind of how it is. I can't find any article about the television shows, but maybe it's out there somewhere. However, again, with this whole thing, I don't think Hawkeye is a flop. I know people out there have been trying to argue that it's a flop. The usual suspects are attacking it as being a flop, but really what it boils down to is that the show, you know, is still being watched by millions and millions of people. And that as the show goes on, word of mouth wise, more and more people are going to watch it. That is how these things work. I do feel that part of the lackluster buildup to it has a lot to do with What If. And I say that not because What If was bad, but What If was different enough to cause enough people to kind of stop and go, I don't quite know if it's everything I want it to be. And then maybe they dipped out by the end because it wasn't connected. Hawkeye also isn't a prime Avenger. I mean, he is a prime Avenger. Everyone knows who he is, but it's like, he's not like, you know, it's not Elizabeth Olsen in WandaVision and like the quirky nature of that. It's not Captain America or Falcon and Winter Soldier, who've been around for a while, you know, in their own stuff and their own kind of standalone stuff. Hawkeye appeared in Avengers Age of Ultron, Civil War, well, Thor in that cameo, Infinity War, and Endgame. You know, like no standalone movie, not popping up really in another film as in a significant role that wasn't kind of an Avengers 2.5. So he's not the most popular, but word of mouth is actually going to do really well for this show as it goes on, especially if some of those rumors turn out to be true, and especially with the introduction of Echo, as we start kind of closing the gap on that Daredevil connection in my mind. So I definitely think that it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with all that. With any luck, we will be getting more as time goes on. But that's, you know, getting more info is what I mean. But I don't think Hawkeye is a flop. But I always want to hear your thoughts about it. So definitely let me know.